So I'm going to be very brief on discussing the Macedonian Renaissance and Constantine the Eighth and the Book of Ceremonies. And then I want to get into discussion of the rise of Islam and putting this in context to what we're reading. So the Macedonian Renaissance is essentially a stabilizing factor, again, within the Byzantine Empire, right? So there's a lot of losses that the Byzantine Empire is facing. But this dynasty, which is going to rule from 867 to 1056, is going to really help reinvigorate and create some sort of stability out of the empire. And this is definitely a time when they were facing Muslims all around them. Syria and Palestine and many other parts are being challenged from the Islamic front. And in any case, they're going to actually be able to even push back Muslims in some instances and others not. But this whole section is just basically to help you get the essence of the fact that the Byzantine Empire was never it wasn't clear that they would ever actually fall, in the sense that you think that it seems like if we go back on all of our discussions, right, there's been challenges from day one, and they were able to continue to kind of hold their ground, even when they lost a lot of territory. And the Roman Empire lost territory before and then regained it. So in any case, Islam is going to be what is affecting so much of what's going on, which is why we need to go into that next, so we can even understand the context of what that really meant and where that all sprung from, where it all came out from, right? So the brief thing to talk about Patriarch Photius is that not only was he bringing back more classical writing, and remember, if you read in the text, despite the Greek influence on this Eastern Roman Empire, they were very much against classical Greek learning for a long time. And so that's something that was an issue for a long time. He did focus on religious and secular writing, and so he's significant for that. But where he's really significant and needing to be mentioned is the tensions that were brought about, again, with the Western Church. When he rises to power and becomes patriarch, as you saw here in 243, that he had a big debate with the West. And keep in mind too, I forgot to mention, it was in the text, but the Western Church never supported the iconoclast movement and saw that as a problem. So the East and the West had that problem. Remember that the West has Latin as a focus, Greek on this side, and these guys, the Pope and the Patriarch in this time excommunicate each other. And this kind of power play and this kind of rift, ultimately we're sliding into a complete rift between the Eastern Roman Church and the Western. I mean, to this day, now, the Eastern Church, which is called Eastern Orthodox, is not in communion with the Catholic Church. There's been attempts to kind of make some sort of peace, but they're not linked together anymore. The Russian Church actually is in communion with, like, the Greek Orthodox, for example, and Antiochian Orthodox from Syria. So this is eventually going to lead to a major split. Okay, so just to move on quickly to Constantine and the Book of Ceremonies, as you saw in the text, this really kind of creates a very deliberate link of a divinity aspect to the emperor. And it's interesting how it kind of somewhat tries to make a ceremonial aspect to infuse an emperor with divine-like powers, almost to deify in a certain sense. I mean, the very act of there being two natures, even in the same way that Christ had two natures. I mean, it's a very brilliant propaganda piece, right, for the justify your position as a ruler. But there's even there is a biblical notion in there as well. I mean, there's a biblical passage that talks about one of the kings of ancient Israel sitting on the throne of the Lord. Sitting on the throne of the Lord. And it was the priest who anoints Saul, the first king of Israel, with the oil on his head. So, even like when you see in the picture in the textbook of the Byzantine portrait where the emperor is having himself crowned by Christ, this imagery does come in a biblical context. I'm not going to necessarily say it's biblical. That's a whole nother debate, but there's enough passages in there to justify or make a rational leap into this phase. In any case, as we're, we'll go into more details about now Islam, because all of this that we're talking about is kind of talking about Islam on the side, but there's all these things that are going on that are only going to make sense understanding. You can't understand the Cold War if you don't understand what the Soviet Union's about, right? Okay, and that you have the Soviet Union in the West. You have to understand what's going on. So in terms of the Middle Ages and coming up to the modern world, you can't really understand it unless you understand the Islamic Empire. So now I will turn and shift into that mode.